This is my trusty Honda Accord, 1997. It's got 211,000 miles on it, but the air circulation is not working. After about 30-40 minutes of driving, air stops coming out of the vents. I can press the buttons there. Has no effect, doesn't come out of any of the vents. In the summer, this would happen when I was running the AC, and the only way to get it to come back working would be to turn the vehicle off, let it sit for an hour and a half or so, then start it back up and be working. Now that we're in the winter, it's 12 degrees out, the heat worked for about 40 minutes of driving, then it stopped. You can hear the motor spinning, you can hear the fan, you can do everything, all the buttons work and everything, just no air comes out of the vents. So you get no heat, and the only way to get it to work again is to park the vehicle in a garage that's warm, let it thaw out, and then it will start working again for about 30 to 40 minutes of driving. The other thing that it does in the summer, right before it stops working, is you'll see little like chunks of snow shooting out of these vents here. And sometimes when it's blowing air out, you can actually see the air, sort of like your breath in the wintertime. So if you're experiencing these symptoms, your problem is probably the same as mine. And that is this evaporator core box that's under the glove box. So what happens is that thing freezes completely solid. From what I've read, it is the expansion valve inside the evaporator core, that's the frozen black solid thing. The expansion valve goes bad, which basically causes it to pump it with Freon and just keep freezing it and freezing it and freezing it. And the only way to make it start working again is for it to thaw completely out. So I will show you how to remove the evaporator core from the car and then replace the expansion valve inside of it. First thing we need to do is remove the glove box. So on the glove box, on each side, right there and right there, you should have one of these just sticking through. I already popped mine out. Once those are removed, there's two screws on that side and those two screws right there. Unscrew those and the glove box will detach. The glove box out of the way, you can kind of get a better look at the bottom. Hopefully you can see that. It's not too much glare from the light, but the bottom of the box has some almost a little bit of ice on it, so you can see it's still frozen. So now this metal bracket needs to come out. It is held in two 10 millimeter bolts. There's one right here, which you can see I've already taken out. And then the other one is over here behind the plastic. So you got to go up from underneath to get at it. I'm going to try to use this ratcheting wrench to hopefully make it a little easier than putting a regular wrench up there. We'll see if it can reach. So I had to bend that side a little bit to get it out, but also on the back of this there's that plug that needs to be taken out. That is this one, and then this is also in the metal frame. You just squeeze on those little tabs there and push it right through off the metal frame of this. Now we have access to the bolts for the evaporator core. There are, I believe, 3 bolts on the top. This one, and the third 6 up there, top left. And then there's 4 along the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, my light's a little bit bright. But 3 on the top, 4 on the bottom. There's also a drain right there in the middle that needs to come off to detach it. And then we'll have to do a couple things from the front inside the motor to get it to come out, but we're close. You also need to detach this plug, which there's a push release on the top here, and then it just goes right out the left side. On the front of the motor, we need to remove this so that we can access the refrigerant lines that are going through the firewall, and they are directly below that. So first thing we need to do is take out that bolt right there, disconnect that plug right there. There's a vacuum line on the back of it that will need removed. I think that's it, and that should come off. So I got the plug off. There's one more bolt right back there against the firewall. I don't know if you can see that. Alright, so I was able to wrestle it out without disconnecting the vacuum line on the back of it. There is the second screw that I had to remove to get it loose. And then also I need to pop this off of this little post here. But I need to move that out of the way. And there's the top AC line that we need to disconnect. There's also one right below it. Once those are disconnected, we should be able to pull the evaporator core right out and start taking it apart. Almost forgot. Before we loosen that, we need to disconnect the bolts that are holding it to the frame. There's one right down there, and there are these 2 up here on the front. And once those bolts are out, we should be able to, once that's loose, we should be able to pull it back and move the lines freely. Alright, so we got her out. One other thing you should take note of is the drain. No need to disconnect it from the evaporator core, but there's a little hole in the firewall where when we put this back in, you'll need to run this through as you're reinstalling it. But now that we got it out, bunch of clips, need to take those off, and on this side it looks like just more clips. So we'll take the clips off and we should be able to get to the expansion valve and replace it. You can see how that's frozen up inside there. Also, I missed it, but there's a screw there, then a screw right there we'll need to remove, and then hopefully it'll come right apart. So we got the top off. There's actually 4 screws in it, but they're easy to find. They just kind of blend in with the black plastic casing. But this is the expansion valve. That's what we're going to replace. Here's the new one. We need to just disconnect here, here, and here. I'll need to unwrap this, take the sensor out that's in there, and put the new one in, rewrap it, and reassemble, put it back in, and we should be done, and we should have heat. But as you can see, it's pretty much a solid brick of ice. So it's not allowing any air to flow through it, so nothing comes out the vents because it's completely frozen, just a chunk of ice. So here is what it looks like with the new expansion valve in. This little piece here, this little piece of insulation was held in by glue. So I'm gonna throw a zip tie or two on it just to hold it in place. I don't have time for glue. But yeah, look, still frozen. I was in here working on this for about 20-25 minutes. These bolts, you want to have a wrench on that and that at the same time when you're breaking it loose, just so you don't bend the piping. Same thing with this one and this one. Put a wrench on that there while you're wrenching on that, and it'll keep it from twisting and possibly popping a leak. But pretty straightforward otherwise. Alright, there she is with my professional grade wire ties. That'll hold the temperature sensor in place. But I will let this thaw out a little bit longer, try to get all that ice off it before I reinstall it. And then hopefully we will have some heat in the Honda. So here are the 4 screw locations. You gotta look at it from the bottom. There's one screw right there, another one on the side, one screw right there, and that is the 4th and final screw. When you're putting the case back together, be careful of this wire. There's a little, kind of like a little groove in the plastic that it goes into. You want to make sure it's in that groove. Otherwise, if it's over here somewhere, when you screw it down, the 2 halves of the case might pinch that wire and could cut it in half. You don't want that, so just make sure it's in that little opening right there when you put the case back together, and then screw it down tight. Okay, she's all the way back together now. All the ice is off the bottom. A couple extra screws I had in there I didn't put back in, but let's start her up and see if we got heat here after I drive around for a little bit. Excuse the sound, the muffler's broke, so she's a little loud. I'll take about a 5-10 minute drive and see if we got heat. Technically, I could just check and see if there's airflow. And there is. Air is finally coming out the vents again. That is a good sign. And it's coming out the top. Actually feels stronger than it's ever felt before, so I think cleaning out that evaporator cord, it also had a lot of dirt inside it that I cleaned out. I think that probably helps a little with the airflow. But yeah, looks like she's fixed. The expansion valve that I replaced, I got that on Rock Auto. Feel the heat. It's only been about a minute and a half. Already warm air coming out. She's fixed. So I just took it for a test drive. Heat works amazing. Air flows out of the vents like it's brand new. It's never flowed that good. So the part cost, I got it off of Rock Auto. I think it was $12.97 plus tax, shipping. I think it came out to like $16-17 total. So yeah, if you're having an issue with no airflow through the vents, even when you switch it from, say, these vents to the defrost vents, no or barely any air flowing out them at all, check your evaporator core under there. Make sure there's not a layer of ice on it. If there is ice on it, or you have ice flowing out of the vents in the summertime when you're running the AC, chances are you need to replace your expansion valve. And that should take care of it. Make sure you click on the subscribe button. Help a brother out trying to get to 1,000 subs so I can get my $3 to $5 a month from YouTube. Tell a friend. If you have kids, grab their phone, subscribe on their phone. I'm sure they'll love the racing videos. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Happy wrenching.